It's welcome to Elden Concede. Ring Concede. Ring Concede sounds better.
Do
Might
not
be a
tempt
fun
me.
podcast.
I will do this in a second. I will do this in 1 second. I will ring in the new year.
I mean,
Uh,
I see what you did there.
yeah, that'd be. Maybe, I mean, we'd probably have to get a little bit further, but yeah,
Yeah.
that would be super
I
fun.
mean,
Yes.
I'm hard capped by Maureen's new Premier League obsession. So, like, she wants to watch that on the big TV. So, I pretty much have like when I am on the exercise bike and when she goes like to go do something outside the house to play the game.
Does anyone else play the
Because that's
PS5?
not right now. No.
Plug it into your monitor.
Oh, it's such a pain in the ass to pick it up and move it all the way over. I actually did try to set up remote play, but it wasn't working.
It's
I think probably
unpleasant.
because
I mean,
was-
my solution
yeah.
was to buy a second PS5, which I don't recommend.
No.
But we were both fighting over Elden Ring for literally 100 hours. It was worth the money. It saved my marriage.
I'm actually, I think it's healthy for me to only be playing it like an hour or so a day.
Probably true.
I have to
You've
say
got
that is
it's gonna
one
last you a while.
advantage to having a non-gamer spouse. We're never fighting over those things.
Yeah.
But
What's up, Goku?
I now have Bloodborne and FF7 Remake as well because my brother's not going to be going back to those for a while. So I just
FF7
borrowed
Remake's
his.
very good.
So they're PS4 copies, but I think it's fine.
I liked
I
FF7
won't play
Remake's combat a lot. The dialogue, it was fine.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it was
Well,
fine.
see.
It was
Look,
fine enough, yeah.
I
you'll
mean,
see.
the updated combat from the original is worth it, right? Like
the
original
combat in
does not
FF7R
hold
is
up.
great. The combat in the remake is really, really good. Like I was just
But in the
my
original,
wife,
like that is dated.
yeah, no, this is a like it's almost a rhythm or a fighting game. Like it's actually like pretty timing
Yeah.
intense. And whenever my wife did the VR challenge, like just The Sims, anytime there's a Tifa fight, I'm like, let me play Tifa because Tifa is so fun in this game because you just like you build up this power
Tifa's a
meter and then
rogue.
you do.
Tifa's like Miracle Rogue.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds
Yes.
great. Yeah.
Yes, that. Yes, that.
Wait,
Like
so
I
you
would
can do
map
it
all the
multiplayer?
hotkeys. No, the Sims are they're combat trials. They were combat trials, and so like I was uninterested in engaging with the 40 hours of story, but the combat, like I'm here for it. So whenever she would do that, I was just like, oh, let me do it.
See, it's still nostalgic for me and stuff.
Yeah. And then if
talking
you
about
like
Final
that, I'm going to
Fantasy
be
VII
more
Remake.
insufferable about Tales of Arise. So.
And then Bloodborne was one of my friends at localhost his favorite Souls game. So we'll have to see.
Did he
works
call
for
it a
me.
Souls game?
Isn't that
that what he
just part of
called
the PlayStation Plus collection?
Or
Bloodborne, I think
FromSoft
so.
game, whatever.
No, they are not the same. That is not the same thing. That is fundamentally different.
I don't remember the exact words he used, but he said Bloodborne. Was
Is
his
it fundamentally different?
Yes. Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
You know, that's why you keep me around.
It is one of the many reasons.
Yes. Yeah, but I also got that Neon White game. I don't know if you heard anything about it.
Oh yeah. It's
Yeah.
a card-based speedrunner.
Yeah, it's very good until they start talking. So I
Yes,
think I feel the same way
the
with
dialogue
that
in that
about-
game is atrocious. It
It's
is
like
it is so horrible. But
it
the
is
gameplay
like-
is awesome.
Yeah, the gameplay is amazing. Like it's like the inverse of a lot of games like this because like I will normally play some games like this and like the story is the reward for finishing a difficult level, and now it's like, oh crap, I finished all the levels. Now I have to listen to them talk for a while. it's like the worst visual novel you've ever played. It with like the best. It's got like the best actual gameplay interspersed with like the literal worst visual novel that I could not care less about.
Oh, man.
All right.
Yeah, I'm quite full up on non-Hearthstone games presently.
But yeah, to answer your question, oldest is gotten into Final Fantasy 14 on her computer, so she's not interested in the PlayStation right now. Yeah.
Best of luck.
Yeah.
From what I hear from Garrett, it is many hours to catch up.
Well, I mean, you know, as long as she doesn't let her grades slip, then it'll be fine.
All All right, shall we do a show?
We should do a podcast. Yeah, we should record this.
Suppose.
That's a good idea.
I can delay some Elden Ring for a couple hours, hour and a half.
Hopefully 90
You're gonna be
minutes.
done with it by the time we record next, aren't you?
No, God.
Not
I have
that
to go back to
game.
work, and I'm going to
It's-
Mexico. Yeah.
Steve,
yeah.
I played that game with the walkthrough
Oh,
open as fast as I could, like you did, and I finished in 80 hours. My wife did not have the wiki open the whole time, and I think was at 120, and she is a Dark Souls veteran.
forgot. We either need to record Wednesday next week or have a guest.
Okay, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Everyone good
Maybe
for
my brother's
local?
wedding in Mexico.
I am now recording. I was waiting until we were doing the thing, but.
Okay. Oh, I should tweet.
Why does my waveform look weird?
Your mic
me
is
just- let-
further away, I think.
It's not that much further away. Let me just listen back to this real fast.
Make sure it's set to the right device.
Yeah.
Oh. I really like the claws, but it's an adjustment trying to quick step instead of block.
You should probably not use the claws.
For bosses. I can use them for other things.
Oh, I think it's just. I think the input might just be set way too low. Like, what is?
You're quieter than normal.
Yeah, I sure am.
I think probably to beat Godric, I'm going to have to just do Reduvia plus shield.
I mean, bleed is good,
Alright,
but
let me-
also you can just hit him.
I'm just talking again. Don't mind me. That looks a little better. Does that sound better?
It does sound better. So is your mic on the right mode? Is it the right device?
Yeah, it's set to the right device. Hang on, I'm just listening back to it. Here, let me just. I'm throwing the volume up all the way, and I'm a little. I have it turned down because I don't want to clip. But is that too loud now?
That is unpleasant. It doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about that? Is that better?
Much better.
Okay, let me just try that. It's at like 75. Yeah, that looks like an actual waveform. That's a little bit better. Because I had it at like
turn him down in
50
Discord, Edel.
before. Is it
Can
too? Am I
down
still
one
too loud
person?
in your ears?
You
Yeah,
sound
you can
fine
turn
to me.
down one person.
Yeah, you sound fine to me now, but I had you turned up in Discord because you're quiet. Now I have you turned down. I'm gonna stop my
Yeah.
recording, by the way.
Oh, okay. I see how. Okay. All right.
Okay. Okay, so okay, I'm glad we fixed that now and not in post. Okay. That's my Hanukkah present to you, Edel. That's... I don't know what I would have done that would have changed that between now and the last time we recorded.
Installed a Windows update.
No, I don't think so. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe there are ghosts in my computer. I'm only working IT for a living, you know. It's ghost. You know, it's ghosts. That's the natural answer.
It's plausible.
Yeah.
IT professionals will say that's reasonable.
Yeah. You know.
All right.
I mean, it makes more sense than a lot of other things that I used to explain things away.
I am recording. Let's see.
Yep.
Let's see how it sounds now.
Recording.
Okay. Yep. Sounds pretty good. All right. You ready? You ready? You ready? 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Starting the show in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Shadows hide you. I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you! Never lose hope.
Here for a chat.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, friend!
Hello and welcome to episode 376 of Coin Concede, the last episode of 2022, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. Right now it's Friday, December 30th, New Year's Eve, in the evening. From Gadsden, New York, it's me, Ridiculous Hat. From Nomergun, Ohio, we have Edelweiss.
Hello.
And from Northern Massachusetts, we have Wicked.
Hi.
And from where you are, listener, we have you. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you to our patrons. Thank you for everyone who's left reviews. Really help other people find the show. And, yeah, it's the end of the year. So, last week, we got an hour and a half into the news because they released a massive patch. They said, you know what? Let's do more of this next week. I mean, I guess we do that every week, but it's going to be a little lighter on news because the offices have been closed. A little lighter on tournaments because there haven't been any. But I started writing this year-end retrospective. Do you know how long a year is? It is 52 podcast episodes, 365 days, sometimes 366. There's paragraphs, pages of things they did this year, of things that happened this calendar year. I'm very excited to talk about it.
And that doesn't even count all the Twitter discourse.
It's I on purpose. I'm not accounting for it on purpose because it doesn't matter. It's not accounting for it because it doesn't matter. Anyways, not here to talk about discourse or discourse. I'm here to talk about UO. Life and Ladder. How's Elden Ring for both of you?
It's great.
It's not the most frustrating game I'm playing this week, so I'll say that much for it.
Oh boy, you have some feelings, Steve? You have some feelings you want to process?
I am very grateful to you, Edel, that you offered to co-op with me yesterday and save me from the spiral that I was in. Because it continued after that. I went right back to that spiral after our co-op. Because I've been seeing how many people are in Legend this month. And I eventually kind of pulled myself out of 5-digit Legend ranks with Big Spell Mage today. But it's been I've just been kind of lost just because like nothing's really working. And at least Big Spell Mage, like I can't really mess that up. Like I play that deck so much that I just like I can do it while I'm doing other things, basically, and then I just hope that the runes do what they're supposed to do. But we did a co-op on my stream yesterday with the infamous Reno Blood Death Knight.
Reno-ish.
Well, it's I mean Reno is in the deck, so
Right, but it is not Highlander.
I mean, it has duplicates because you need double blood, but
I mean, it is a Highlander deck because Highlander they said there can only be one, and then they made 3 movies. So you're allowed a couple extras.
And we are not the only. It is not the only one of these decks on ladder because I also played against one later that night. So and they healed up to 45, healed for 45, and then I conceded. But we did have one glorious game of Retribution against a Thief Rogue, where they played Convoke the Spirits and played, I forget if it was 2 or 3 compostings on a full board.
It's a lot.
It was a lot of
compostings.
it was a lot of compost. It was a whole recycling center that they made right there.
It was a Soul Stealer victory.
Yeah. Because we just played Soul Stealer into that, and then they drew. I forgot that there was actually multiple compostings. I was just expecting them to draw like a few cards into Fatigue, and they went at least like 8 or 9 cards into Fatigue before they finally died. It was pretty fun to watch.
Was that the same game as the Rogue that Celestial Alignmented?
Yes, it was.
And forgot that their Astalors would only deal 8, not 16.
I'm pretty sure that was the same game. Yes.
Despite the fact that they had 4 Astalor 8s. Yeah.
Yeah, because they shadow stepped Astalor 2 in like 3 times or something. Or they like shadow step it and use like the copy of spell on it or something. They like I remember being terrified during that game because they had so many Astalor 8s and we weren't going to be able to do anything about it. But yeah, then they only did 8 damage. They weren't quite so terrifying. Yeah, that was a game. That was an average game with the Blood Death Knight, I'd say.
Well, I'm glad you two found some fun.
Yeah.
Have either of you had fun outside of just that game?
Well, I really have been enjoying Pure Paladin because it has like just that sweet spot of RNG, right? Where you can have a really aggressive early game and run away with things. I never lose to any druid ever, which is always a benefit. And when you get to go Countess and then do those invitations, it's just really fun to me trying to puzzle out the win, and it's like it's just enough, right? I feel like Thief Rogue is just it's too much, right? There's the random death rattles and the random colossals and the stuff you pick off Tooth, and now there's the hallucinations from concoctions. Like it's a little too much. Oh, and then the secrets off like too many things going on. And then you've got to like try and curate your pool for the replays. This is just like, all right, what 3 things can I get to kill you as quickly as possible?
Or 2 things in Kragwa.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
So I love being able to like, okay, we take Kragwa, or okay, this was the first invitation, I can do Savara, and then I'll get more. I did a coaching where we picked up like King Crush, Decimator, Olgra, and Najak Hexen. And so we took their Mountain Bear, and then we King Crushed an Olgrud for like exact lethal. It was just like the perfect 3. And that was a pretty spectacular end to the game. And so you get these kind of fantastic, exciting ends. And like sometimes you whiff, and that's okay. And sometimes you can really piece together something goofy. So that's probably the deck I've been having the most fun with, where I'm actually winning. Blood DK, I can go like even, but it's hard to climb. Yeah. And I don't know why, but like Frost DK and the Frozen Touch Mage, I do okay, but it just doesn't pull me in the same way the Pure Paladin does. And of course, the Pure Paladin kind of loses to those most of the time, and struggles a little bit against Imp Warlock. So I think I'm feeling a little bit kind of down in terms of some of the matchup. I don't know if it's super polarized, but there's certain matchups that don't feel great, and I probably could be like playing them more and just getting better at them, but also Elden Ring.
Yeah, I'm pretty much there too. I mean, there's no. I mean, there's Blood DK, but I mean, realistically, there's no control decks, right? So like, I can play other things, but like, I like to be. I mean, that's part of how I tanked my rank too. Is I've just tried playing like the Control Warrior that was posted a couple days ago that got to top 50. That was a bad idea, and I mean, it's like Copium. Like, oh, maybe there's this one control deck that'll work. And it's like, I can play, an all-in aggro deck, or, I mean, these aren't even really all-in aggro decks, but like these burn decks or whatever. But it's just like, every time that I lose because I'm one off, I just feel stupid, and then I don't want to do it anymore. But it's fine, right? Like, I found something I can play in the meantime. I've also been playing a fair amount of TFT. I just hit platinum last night. In the new set, and the new set's really fun. And it's fine if it's like this until they get back into the office, and I'm sure we're gonna have a balance change in a week or so, because I would imagine that after that big nerf that they did with Miracle Rogue and Quest Demon Hunter still being at the top of the Vicious Syndicate report that just came out yesterday, they probably have some more things that they want to do, and maybe I don't know if it's going to take them a little longer to do that. But I would imagine that they wouldn't view that as a successful balance change if, those decks just I mean, they're not the same decks, to be sure. Like, they're different different iterations of the decks, but I mean, it's kind of when you're dying to, from 30 to a Jace, or you're getting beaten in the head with 15/15, whatever the things are that come out of the Sinstone graveyards. Like, it doesn't matter that the decks are behaving differently if they, the end result is kind of the same, right? So
I did play in my THL matches like the Sinful Brand, Demon Hunter, and the Concoction Miracle Rogue, and I haven't done those on ladder yet, but they felt really good in the match, and so I'm curious to see how I could sort of push with those on ladder, and probably when I, next am doing quests and like, doing the new push for January, I'll probably probably use those. But yeah, it's tough right now with just like Blood DK feels like the thing that has pulled me the most in terms of a play style I really want to engage with and something I want to do because it's a new class and really fun, and it's just like not lining up, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yep. And there's been a lot of discussion on Hearthstone social media, as there always is. A lot of theories about that. First of all, the people that can't do the thing they like log on to social media instead of logging into the client. That's not new information. I stand by the idea that off-meta content creators can't really make the kind of videos they want to make easily in formats like this where you just kind of die if you're not doing something efficient. We saw this in Stormwind with Quest Mage, and I don't think this is a Stormwind meta, but it is very proactive and trying to do something off-meta. There's a chance of finding a cool game. There's also a much larger chance of dying to any number of damage spells or minions or whatever you want to call it around turn 7, turn 8. And caveat time. They should do balance changes, and they will for this format. And it is too fast. I'm having a great time. This is. I want this to happen at least once a year. I want what we have right now to be in the game at least once a year. I don't expect it to last more than a month. I don't think it should. And there should absolutely be a reactive strategy available to people right now. I can't get enough Hearthstone right now. Cannot. I am hard limited by my job, but I've snuck in a game here or there. It's a lot easier these days because the games are faster. A lot easier to sneak in a game here, a game there. I've been sneaking in Hearthstone games instead of Snap games because I like this meta and I don't really like that meta, and the games here are still pretty fast. And it's just fun. I'm having a lot of fun. I found a rogue deck that I like a lot. It turns out Draco was the thing actually holding back my fun because it felt stupid. And it was. Like, it's just, I don't want to hit people with a big knife. I want to build big boards. And there's a Wildpaw Knoll semi-RNG deck. Where, like, remember Alterac Thief Rogue, your biggest RNG card in Alterac was Recon. Was Reconnaissance. That was the main thing that got you other cards, but Jackpot hadn't been printed yet. So we were an efficient tempo deck that happened to have Recon. This has Concoctions, which the get a class card and make it cost 3 less. I haven't found a way to abbreviate that cleanly yet. I call it 3 less, but I know that's not the most descriptive. That got me a Bone Glaive the other day. Pyroblast with Dredge. We take those. I played it alongside 2 13-13s. It was pretty good. So, I don't know. I was having a really good time. This is not the Jackpot deck. Still having a good time. It should get worse. Wildpaw Knoll probably shouldn't still be good a year later. But I'm having a good time with it. Having a good time with Shockspitter Hunter. Enjoying the various flavors of Mage. Picking up whatever random decks I can find on Twitter. I had fun with a Quest Druid the other day. A Quest Druid. Still okay. Still get to do some pretty wacky stuff. But sometimes you have these really good games, then you still lose because it's a high-powered format. I'm here for it. I'm about it. I like it. Games are fast, but, like, I've seen turn 10 a number of times. Like, if people tell you they don't get to see turn 10, and then they also complain about Astalor dealing 16 damage, you gotta pick one. You can't do both. Because I understand Druid's ramp, but the vast majority of decks, Astalor 8 does not turn yellow until turn 10. It's still out there.
And even on turn 10 if they play Celestial Alignment.
Yeah, I haven't seen any alignments, and I hope it stays that way. And I tanked my rank pretty far outside 11x range, but I am back now, like, just around rank 1,000 on North America. Seems like the most fun place to be. Seems like the high legend meta is pretty degen, for lack of a better term. Like, Boon Priest is still making regular appearances around there, and, like, I'm all set. It's beatable, but I'm just not interested in having to deal with that, and I haven't, and I appreciate that. Rogue and Demon Hunter obviously too good. Spitter obviously a little over where it needs to be. There's a lot of different edges that need to be pulled back. Bandit Keith posted a tempo, air quotes, tempo charge warrior deck that I had a really good time with. The 3 games I played with it, 3 games with this deck. Control Priest, Control Warrior, Control Warrior. In a row. What? Huh? Why? I don't know. That didn't keep happening, but, like, it's there's stuff out there. I've been winning with Secret Mage. There's stuff out there. There are things to do. There are no reactive things to do right now. They need to fix that. They need to fix that. But as of right now, this is the kind of meta I really enjoy on a routine basis. I don't want it to always be this way. It shouldn't stay this way. But I am having a grand old time. And I imagine that it will go away in probably about 2.5 weeks. My theory is that 25.2, which is the BG's patch, probably due on January 10th if they have it checked out and shipped and whatever, like ready for shipping. And if that's the case, then we should get a balanced patch to that, as well as standard, on Thursday the 19th. Could be that that's a week later, could be the 17th and 26th, but I'm expecting the 10th and 19th, which means that is probably when when this meta will shift. And then usually that's about 2 weeks before the mini set. And then after that, we've got the pre-order patch. And then after that, we've got the expansion and rotation. It's coming. Coming pretty soon.
And listeners, if you are not convinced that Hat likes this meta that much, I just want to point out that during that monologue, there was a cat on Edel's camera, and Hat did not stop in mid-sentence to say cat.
I resisted the urge.
He was that's how you know how much he's actually enjoying this. But and like, I just got my meta, right? Like, I got the Plague Spreader Priest meta. Like, what goes around comes around. It's okay to not love every meta, right? Like, that's fine. Like, I'm not angry at the game, and I'm like, some of the stuff I've seen is like, like the game needs a whole, like, to be torn down and built up again. Like, it doesn't. It's, it's a meta that's not for everybody, and it won't stay this way, and it's fine, right?
This is the thing, is like, there's always going to be someone who is unhappy because people enjoy different things, and it's a complex game. What I find strange is when the same person complains no matter what, because at that point, maybe the problem is just them.
Yeah, well.
I mean...
And card design is hard, Like, if you're going to complain that the meta is not exactly the way you wanted, card design is hard. These were balanced patches that were on a compressed timeline in general, just because of the timing of, like, when the set came out and, like, holidays and worlds and everything like that. Like, they're doing the best they can. And, they got a lot of things right. They got some things that maybe some people don't think that are right. And, they'll fix it. It's fine.
Yeah, I don't think this meta, like, it's not perfectly balanced. And at High Legend in particular, there are a couple clear outliers, Demon Hunter and Miracle Rogue. But for the vast majority of players, I think that this meta does not have major balance outliers. There are play patterns that some people may not engage with, but there have been times this year we've had things that are clearly, obviously too good, right? Yeah. Drekthar was this calendar year. We played with Drekthar this calendar year. That card was too good. It was not the kind of thing that you want to have around, and it was around. There have been other things we've seen that have been objectively too strong. That's not really what we're seeing with this meta. And the best deck on HSR at a lot of different ranks for the last 3 days is Shockspitter Hunter, but it's within like a 2-3% bracket of a lot of other decks and classes. And Rage Warrior is a top 5 deck right now, last 3 days Diamond through Legend. You don't see a lot of Enrage Warriors out there, but it wins more than most decks. Right? If Enrage Warrior, Pure Paladin, and Big Spell Mage are all within spitting distance of best deck, I think the format's probably okay. They will change it because the play patterns exclude some decks from existing, some strategies from existing. But we've seen balance outliers. I don't think that this format has a lot of balance outliers. It's just, as far as options available to players, it is more limited than it should be, and so they're going to nudge it just like they always nudge it.
Yeah, so, and I think the other issue that some people could have with this meta is that, I don't want to call them non-games, but there are more games that I think that any of us would like, where you feel like you're kind of the character in somebody else's story, and like, I played against a Thief Rogue who had 2 metas on turn 5, and like, that's like that sort of a thing where, yeah, okay, we don't need to keep playing this out, and it doesn't matter what I would have done, and how much that's really true, how much is actually true that your decisions didn't matter, is up for debate. But there are some games where you just, like, things happen out of your control, and there's not really a whole lot you can do about it. And I think that's a thing that does cause players, especially at lower ranks or who are less engaged, to exit. So that's something that the team's going to want to address.
Yeah, though I think in some cases what you can do about those games is in the deck selection screen.
Yeah, that's true too.
It's been interesting to read some of the takes that I've seen some takes that life gain just isn't good anymore. Right? I've seen some takes like that. But Edel, don't worry, I'm about to refute this very cleanly and very quickly. For anyone that's thought the defensive tools, the life gain isn't relevant anymore, how many games have you lost to the 5 armor from Astalor? Because I have lost double-digit games to the 5 armor from Astalor. If you, listener, have also lost games to the 5 armor from Astalor, 5 life makes that much of a difference, which I think it does. There has to be some turning point where doing stuff and also gaining life can make a difference. You can't just gain life as a primary strategy. But 5 life matters. Really does.
Yeah, and I think that is the key difference, right? No Muncher is so good because
that card's
it
great.
gains life, creates a taunt, and if they have an empty board, it's also hitting them in the face. I had a friend who was saying, he was messing around with Double Frost, Single Blood just for Patchwork and No Muncher. And I could see how that might be interesting in sort of the Frost mirror or whatever, because okay, you lose access to Frostworm's Fury, but No Muncher doesn't stay frozen, right? If they just leave it there, because it still gets one of the attacks. So definitely, I think the life matters. It's more, I think the issue that Blood has is there's certain things against all these different classes that present a challenge. Against Paladin, you've got the Divine Shields that can be really tough, right? It takes a while to get to Soul Stealer mana. Against Frost, if you are not pressuring them, which is kind of challenging to do as a control deck, well, then they can save up to big burn turns, and then yes, you gained life. But it's not that the life doesn't matter. It's just you have to not take chip damage and gain that life, and be able to stay out of that threat of a ton of burst. Maybe you do need to run a silence for 4/3 Death Whisper.
Lady Death Whisper? Yeah. I'm not even sure she belongs in the deck, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that there's so many aggressive decks that attack from different directions right now that I think it's challenging to have a tech card for anything, right? And you kind of need to approach the different matchups in these various ways. And yeah, as you say, just life gain isn't enough. But I don't know, it also maybe shouldn't be enough, right? If just life gain wins a matchup, that's a little too easy. I don't know.
I mean, also, life gain's never been enough against these kinds of decks, ever.
Yeah.
We didn't play Control Priest when Garrett Rogue was in the meta, because you died. You died from 30, and it doesn't matter if you can gain the life after they've killed you. That's not
Control
how it
Warrior
works.
was able to beat Freeze Mage, with armor gain.
But I know, but that's
back
armor
in 1974,
gain, not life gain, though, right?
when we were playing Paper Hearthstone.
Yeah. But that's also because, those decks were, Freeze Mage really could do 30. Right. It was able to do 30 and not a whole lot more than that. So if you could go above 30, and I do think that a lot of these decks are very Freeze Mage maybe not Demon Hunter per se, but certainly Frost DK very often and Aggro Mage too. You're generally you can get above 30, but not too much. So the armor gain does matter. It's being able to go above 30 is more so than life. Maybe I'm being pedantic, right? Because I think I kind of look at life gain and the ability to go above 30 life as two different things, right? Because life gain is after the fact, and if these are not decks that are chipping you down in over a couple of turns, right? That's when life gain helps. Well, sometimes they get you over a couple turns, but a lot of times. The burst is coming. Maybe it's over 2 turns, but it's a big chunk followed by another big chunk. Some of the minions help in Aggro Mage to some extent.
Yeah, it feels strange to say, but I'm pretty sure the limiting factor in this format is Sinful Brand, which is not where I thought 2022 would end up. But here we are.
That card is a lot.
It's Brand Band is a lot. brand by itself, whatever, but band, Faldorei Warband is a ridiculous card, and being able to go brand, and badly punish playing your Alexander's Mograine or whatever. It just...
Or just a minion. Just
Yeah.
a minion with 4 health. It doesn't even have to be like a big bomb. It's just like, I played an Arubian Vizier and now I'm dead. Right? Like,
Should have only played 2/2s or 2/3s.
yeah.
Like, it's a
Should have played
weird
around it.
part of the game.
That might have been the theme of this year, of Demon Hunter killing you because you dared play a minion that had health. Like, it's come up multiple times. In Voyage, it definitely felt like a mistake to cast Treasure Guard against the aggro deck, which thankfully they fixed. We should talk about that year in review, but yeah, it's I'm having a good time right now. If you look at the leaderboards, the America server currently has 18,000 Legend players, 17,312 Legend players on the America server. Europe is closer to 23,000. Asia Pacific just over 10. So the game ain't dying. People aren't quitting. I will say that Twitch viewership and YouTube viewership, I've heard from a lot of creators, this expansion didn't give the bump they expected for December and for a new class. Not really sure why that is, but it didn't. And we'll talk about World's viewership stats as well. And those were lower than anticipated. But it does look like the number of people actually playing is pretty healthy for this point in the expansion in the game's life cycle. So, doesn't mean it's perfect. Doesn't mean it should stay this way. It's not what we're saying. It's not what we're saying, but I am enjoying Hearthstone right now. I bet there are a lot of people out there that are. If you are one of those people, don't feel bad. If you are not enjoying Hearthstone right now, you are right there with my co-host. This is not everyone's meta. Not every meta is for everyone. Just, there is no wrong opinion here of your own feelings. The only wrong opinions are ones that are judging others for having different feelings than yours. So, let's head into the news.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
Pretty light news week. There are some new portraits in the shop. There's Mal'Ganis, for all of you turtle enjoyers out there. And there is Sally Whitemane, for those of you that used to like playing Priest.
Yep. I bought her. Haven't gotten to use her yet, but she'll be there eventually.
You can play Blast Priest.
You can play Wild.
I could play Wild. Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, Wild. Okay. I'm like low 10x MMR. I'm on the 10x 9x border. There are some goofy decks that are questionably competitive. Yesterday I had to clear some quests. I had the Nozdormu quest I had to do. I still had it because I just kept forgetting about it. There is this deck I found, a full Outcast Demon Hunter, where you get to play Line Hopper. You get to play Redeemed Pariah. That's the 2-mana 2/3. When you play an Outcast card, gets
I know what it
+1/+1.
does.
Line Hopper, 3-mana 3/4. Your Outcast cards cost 1 less.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I know what
Line
these cards
Hopper.
do.
Yeah, I know you do. With Fierce Outrider, and then and Vengeful Walloper is a demon, so you can philosophy the Vengeful Walloper.
You're just saying words now.
Is the Walloper the one that generates outcasts?
No, that's Wretched Exile. Walloper is the Rushy guy.
It's the payoff.
Yeah. I mean,
Please
it's
tell me
air
you play
quotes.
Selena in this deck. Please tell me it made the cut.
I mean,
No.
I can tell you that, but it wouldn't be the most accurate thing I've said today. You generate her quite often.
Oh yeah, I'm
And-
sure you do.
And we do play Miltranix and Fellerin the Forgotten. Yeah, it's extremely... It's just Control F, Outcast, build deck, go. Like, I don't know how good it is, but I've had some fun turns. And then also, Swagwar tweeted this deck. Even Unholy Aggro DK. Because even DK, you see where this is going. It's 1 mana hero power. It's a 1 mana hero power.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna paste this here.
Very easy corpse generation. So you
Very
can,
easy
you can
corpse
always have a corpse on 2 for the Necromancer.
Correct. You can. And Mana Feeder Panthara, pretty nice, pretty good.
Sure.
I think that this list actually is missing something. I do want to put Haunted Creeper in here. I do think it needs Haunted Creepers, but otherwise it's got a lot of good stuff going on. So
Is Haunted
That
Creeper
deck.
on Dead now?
I don't know, but it
Or
feels like
because it's a
it
beast,
should be.
right? Or if the tokens are, because
The tokens are
could be-
undead beasts now.
Okay, because those would be good for for Dark Transformation.
That's actually the stone cold nuts. Hold on, I'm gonna tweet at him right now. Okay, I'm tweeting at him. That was the sound
Talk
of a
amongst
tweet.
yourselves.
No, it's
Yeah.
the tweet is over. It's how don't disrespect me.
I should know
Okay, so-
better. Yeah.
Come on. So so yeah, you can play all the stuff in Wild. Anyways, so you can also play Priest, so you can play Sally Whiteman there. And that's all the new stuff they added. The offices are closed. We did get an update on the future of Hearthstone in China, though it's not the most clear update. But Nathan Lyon-Smith, the Hearthstone executive producer, was in a video talking to Hearthstone players, and he said, "Please hang in there. We're exploring possibilities to bring the game back to you and the community." There's an article about it on esports.gg. It seems like they are pretty invested in getting back into the area, into the region. And, you know, the head of Hearthstone does not have any input here. Doesn't get to say, hey, Blizzard executives, go make China happen. But he specifically spoke to the players in the China audience to reach out to them and just say, hang in there, we're exploring possibilities. It seems like they really want to make this work. So, yeah. We also have some viewer numbers on the Hearthstone World Championship 2022. eCharts.com wrote a pretty, am I supposed to say clickbait? Pretty incendiary headline. The worst viewership stats in the series. I'm sure that's true. It also happened to be at the same time as the World Cup finals. Like, the exact same time as one of the greatest World Cup finals in history. But yeah, I mean, the YouTube deal has very clearly not gone great for Hearthstone Esports, or really anybody. It's unclear where Hearthstone Esports will land, and it's kind of becoming clearer and clearer over time that Hearthstone as a content creation vehicle, and you know, it's an old game. It's not bringing people to as spectators, as viewers, quite as much as it did before. Not sure if that will continue. Not sure exactly what the precipitating causes are, but it's worth noting.
Yeah, I mean it's the YouTube deal is ending, is as ended, I guess. We don't know if that's going to mean that Construct is coming back to Twitch. I would imagine that the fact that Lobby Legends has been on Twitch will be good. Will mean something for that. I mean, it's worth looking at Worlds compared to the other Hearthstone tournaments of the year, including not only Lobby Legends, and there's one Lobby Legends that did better than that, which is on Twitch. The Death Knight show match, which was on Twitch, that had double the viewership of Worlds, and Tice's tournament that he did at TwitchCon, which had almost triple the viewership of Worlds. So I don't think that this is necessarily indictment of Hearthstone or of Hearthstone esports even, because I mean, Tice's tournament was an esports tournament. Part of it is clearly that YouTube is not the platform, and at least for esports, that's not where the viewers are. And you know, there's probably also something to be said about the fact that esports has turned into a cost center for the marketing department more over, you know, the past couple of years, which means that they've been, you know, trying to do more with less. And that's going to have an impact on viewership too. I mean, there's, you know, the prize pools are smaller. The prize pools are half what they were in the years when, you know, when they were getting hundreds of thousands of viewers. There are fewer opportunities to be able to compete just because of the system compared to the way that it was. And you know, they also, at the same time that that Grandmaster started, they also cut off a lot of third-party events, right? So you don't have things like DreamHack, and we had Trinity Series, we had the Geico Gaming events. We had a number like Republic of Gamers. We had a whole World Series of Esports. Like there were a whole bunch of those other series that were prominent that were taking place on weekends when there wasn't an official event. That also helped build stories and build familiarity with some of these players outside of something like an official event. And those have completely dried up since the beginning of the Grandmaster system, because Blizzard's pulled back support for them. So it's not like just going back to Twitch is going to fix everything. I don't think it is. It certainly can't hurt. But it's something that the question is whether this is a concern or not for Blizzard, because if it's doing what it's intended to do, which is promote the game and get whatever viewers it gets, then I wouldn't expect it to see changes. If this is something that they do want to be, if they feel like esports visibility is important to the viability of the product, then that's something that they would want to address. But it's hard to know, other than Abar's doing the best that he can with what he has, right? Like, I think we can all agree on that like this is not Abar's issue or Abar's fault. Anything that's happening here, I think that he's doing the best to run the program with what he's given to work with. But it's he's just doesn't have the resources, I think, to do what needs to be done to make this I wouldn't even say a first-class esport, because I don't think Hearthstone is ever going to compare on the level of something like like a League of Legends, but certainly like at the level of like the Magic World Championships. I think that's a reasonable expectation. And Magic World Championships, I think, pulls like 100,000 viewers regularly even now. So
yeah, it remains to be seen where they can bring esports, but the YouTube deal very clearly was a very major problem for it. And this year is a big question mark. Just there's a lot of factors that they are waiting on seeing, and I also don't personally know why the numbers are so far down for this expansion from where a lot of content creators are expecting to be. There are theories about BG's cannibalization. I don't think it's gameplay related. I'd be pretty surprised if it was gameplay related. We've seen there were better numbers for Specialist. Cannot possibly be gameplay related. Just no way. We had an entire expansion of Rogue and Warrior mirrors, and it's about the play patterns. I'd be extremely surprised.
And like there were Freeze Mage mirrors back in 2015, right? Like
Freeze Mage mirrors were interesting. Control Warrior mirrors were the really, really slow ones where people actively didn't play their cards. There have been, Yogg mirrors, I think they were entertaining at first, but then they stopped pretty quickly. It's, there have been a lot of formats over the years that haven't been the most compelling to watch. I don't think that we're in any kind of outlier right now where it would stop people from tuning in. So it just doesn't strike me as the sort of thing where gameplay in particular would be the thing that would turn people off. There's got to be some other factor going on. But I don't know. I'm not an analyst. But we don't have any more tournaments to talk about, so what we are going to do is talk about the year in review.
How long can this go on?
About 12 months. All right. Are you all ready?
A throwback. That button on your soundboard must have rusted over.
It's right here between Rock is Dead and You're the Most Heavy Metal Thing I've ever seen. And it's right above Grim Patron. Anyways, I wrote up a bunch of stuff that happened this year. Let's go through it together. I want to see if everyone remembers all these things that happened this year. Because 1 year ago today, December 30th, 2021, there was a Vicious Syndicate report published. This report, it came out immediately after the 22.0.2 balance changes, right after Alterac release, the day after Worlds. Celestial Alignment was nerfed the first time. Bannerman to 2-1, Octobot to 3 mana, Snowfall from 5 to 6, Touch gained 1 less life, Rod from 4 to 5, the second nerf, Bloodsail Deckhand from 2-2 to 2-1. Iron Deep Trog, Moarg Artificer. They buffed Tavish Hero to 2 mana Animal Companion hero powers. Grey Sage Parrot from 8 mana to 6 mana.
That was 8 mana. Good
8
grief.
mana 6/6. Dawn Grasp Hero from 8 to 7, and the hero power went from deal 1 HK2 to deal 2 HK2, and Wildfire persisted through Dawn Grasp. Before this, it was a bunch of Stormwindy stuff that was still doing well, but after these nerfs, Wildpaw Knoll Thief Rogue was the best deck in the game, followed closely by Quest Rogue, Libram Paladin, Face Hunter, Quest Warrior, and Handlock. Poison Rogue, low sample size, but seemed like it would be pretty good. That's foreshadowing. This was 1 year ago today is when we got this information. In January, there were more nerfs, but the nerfs were a few weeks in. Because remember, there were the QA strikes, so they couldn't nerf right away in early January. So we had to wait until late January. And by then, the meta had developed. There were 2 rogue decks. There was Knoll Poison Rogue and Knoll Thief Rogue. And they had opposite matchup spreads. And also, turn 5, turn 6, turn 7, Cloak, Scabs. Cloak, Scabs. Because Scabs cost 7 back then. Yeah.
That was worse than present.
I think that was the last time I played a rogue deck.
Definitely take this over that meta.
I think I got into like top 500 with that deck, if I remember correctly.
It was very powerful, and also I'm glad they demolished it. I am very glad that they destroyed it, but it was very powerful. I really liked that Thief Rogue deck, but it went on for way too long and was clearly an outlier, and Cloak Scabs was not an okay thing. Not here for it. Not about it. So, January, they nerfed Scabs, they nerfed Knoll, they nerfed Cloak, they nerfed Raid the Docks, and Canter Slow, Sorcerer's Apprentice to 4. Rapid Fire, and they buffed Rokara Hero. Remember, Rokara Hero didn't give you 10 armor before, it gave you 5 armor. Was not very good. She got better. This was also the same patch as the BG's update where we got buddies. Oh, buddy. Yeah, that was January of this year. So, after that,
That's so weird to think that buddies like came and went within the same year.
Yep. Yeah, it's a seasonal mechanic. It was around for 22.2 to 23.2. Around for 4 months. In February, Onyxia's Lair came out. That was in February. That was the release of Kazakusan and other cards. So,
were there other cards? Oh, yeah, Scale of Onyxia.
The community rated the best card in the set as Lightmaw Netherdrake. I said that was number 1. There was a lot of contention about was Curse of Agony too good or too toxic? A lot of question about that. Yeah, looking at the list, Scale of Onyxia was, I think, the 10th best card rated in the set, and Kazakusan was 10th from the bottom. Last card in the set, the worst card in the set, was apparently Smokescreen, which, to be fair, was true until it wasn't. But yes, Onyxia's Lair came out, and that brought us, well, Kazakusan Druid, Kazakusan Warrior, 2 very strong decks, completely opposite matchup spreads. This is also the patch where BG's Cosmetics got a new item included, the introduction of finishers, which are now called strikes, for probably pretty straightforward reasons. Yeah, this was February. Locust got nerfed a month later, by the way.
If it's not straightforward to you, I appreciate you. I see you.
Yes. But they're called
By the
strikes
way,
now.
I would like to say I was right about Kazakusan.
You were.
You guys are saying,
Yeah.
what is actually going to play this? It's too slow. We have these other things as win conditions. Why would we do this?
Well, now we know, because anything that's the 10 mana neutral is a Druid card. You know, now we know the answer to that.
Yeah. Trying to think, look at the overrated cards here. There are just some weird cards in this set, but there have been enough balance changes that it's kind of hard to keep track of what actually, like, looked good and didn't look good. The highest rated card that has seen 0 play that I can think of is Hit It Very Hard. The 1 mana spell for Warrior where you gain 10 attack and can't go face.
Yeah.
Yeah. But The only change that would happen before the end of the standard year for rotation in April was Locust would be removed from the Kazakhstan pool, and SI7 Smuggler, they would frame it as correcting the wording because it started at 1 instead of at 0, whereas SI7 Informant started at 0 because it counted other, whereas they said Smuggler was counting itself. That was just a nerf to the card. They made Quest Rogue way worse. They ended up putting it back later. But otherwise, there were no other changes made to Standard. They just removed Locust. So, okay. Kazakhstan was crazy in Druid and Warrior for the rest of the year. Really, really powerful in those two decks. In early March, Ben Lee came on this very show to announce his departure from the Hearthstone team. He still was with Blizzard at the time. I'm not sure where he's at now, actually. But he came on this show to say goodbye to Hearthstone. He moved on, said the team was in great hands. Turns out that Ixar was taking over as game director. We didn't know it yet, but he did until later. But yeah, that happened in March of that year, and then we got the announcement for Voyage to the Sunken City. Came out in April with a big rotation, huge core set changes. Got a really splashy Priest core set, among others. Really, really exciting Priest core set. Bomb soundtrack. Came out early April.
Trailer.
Yeah, trailer was so good.
Song. Oh. And Crab Rave. Be a
The Crab Rave did happen. Yes. And so, yeah, that was also... Let's look at this core set changes. The core set changes in 2022. Well, we got Bran. And all for the Explorers. We got Earth and Scales back. Living Roots, Wrath, Candle Shot. Springpaw and Animal Companion have seen no play that I can think of, even though I remember them being very powerful cards. Blizzard left but came back, so Blizzard's back. We got all these really cool Priest cards. People freaked out about Priest. Draconid Operative, Lightbomb, Lyra, Murazon, Northshire Cleric, and Radiant, and most of those have seen play. Lyra and Murazon, not as much.
Even Murazon was... I was seeing play for a little while. In like the some of the thiefy priests when they were trying to do that, but yeah, I mean, I don't think that we quite envisioned the deck that we were getting with those with Boar Priest and Boon Priest. I do not think were what people were thinking of when they saw Radiant Elemental come back, but yeah,
and Northshire.
Yeah.
Yep. And perhaps the biggest changes were a couple of returning cards that got a mana shaved off. Nourish to 5, Equality to 2, both pretty relevant. Shaman got Bloodlust back. Bunch of really interesting things. The core set was really exciting. Was a really, really exciting moment that people freaked out when they saw what was coming back.
And Tess came back too.
Yep, Tess at 7 mana.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe could have done without that, but I think it'll be exciting again. I think core set swaps are going to be exciting pretty much every time.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that they can do with it, right? Like there's a lot of agency that they have in terms of what cards they bring in and what they take out. Like Candle Shot is something that was just like, okay, why? And then we saw Shock Spitter, right? Now you know why, right? Like there are some things that were just kind of like little teasers that were just there for most of the year that didn't really pay off until until March of the Lich King came out even. So, there is a lot of things that they can do, both in terms of the cards they're going to put in to support things that they're going to print, and also things that they can take out, Bran, to make the decks feel different.
We will not get Bran back.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing outside, but I'm going to just mark that down. So Voyage came out. Druid was absurd right out of the gate. Completely absurd. And we got the first set of nerfs in April 26th. They reworked Kazakhstan's conditional. Miracle Growth went to 8. They nerfed the Warrior Quests the first time. Puffer Fist from 3-4 to 3-3. Remember Puffer Fist? Remember him?
Yep.
Nerf Switcheroo, Bandit and Wild, and Kael'thas Sunstrider. Remember they tried reverting that card to the original 6 mana and your third spell cost 0? Didn't work. They put it back to 1. That's fine now. Yeah. So after that patch, Aggro DH with Drekthar, Quest Hunter with Drekthar, and Quest Hunter with Control Warrior with From the Depthar for the 3 best decks. So Control Warrior back then was pretty crazy, but this is where I began the era that I will call the Great Churn. This was the start of a period of the year that we talked about a couple times, where over the course of 2 months, there were so many changes that it felt almost impossible to keep up with. And we talked about it quite a number of times in the show, because it felt dizzying, even to us as highly engaged players, and we got a lot of listener feedback about how, as people that played more like, not even casually, as people that had full lives and kids and whatever, they couldn't keep up. They didn't know what to do. Whenever they logged in, everything was different, including changing core rules of the game. So, this era, May 19th, double-digit balance patch. They nerfed Drekthar, Multi-Strike, Dragonbane Shot. They buffed Harpoon Gun. Pet Collector was a 3-3. They made that a 4-4. Ajar and Saber, Sunken Saber were 3-3s. They made them 4-3s. They buffed Z-Lag. That used to only deal 1 damage. Blackwater Behemoth used to cost 8. Whirlpool cost 9. 9!
It was
Who's gonna pay
unplayable.
9 mana? It's you tried. Lord knows
I
you
did.
tried.
It was terrible. It was
Yeah.
awful at 9 mana.
Serpent Wig got buffed. Wild Paw Knoll got a full reversion. That ended up being a mistake, by the way. They fixed that pretty soon. Tooth of Nefarian. They buffed all the curse cards, and also they buffed some Warlock Murlocs. They can't all be winners, but they tried. Thief Rogue immediately became the most popular deck in the game. Control Warrior, still very good, and got even better when the mini set Throne of the Tides came out shortly after. Throne of the Tides, relatively low impact as far as mini sets go, I think. I'm looking at the sheet now. There were not as many things going on in the mini sets this year overall. Like Fossil Fanatic was kind of a big deal. Herald of Nature was a big deal. We got Shell Shot was decent at the time for Quest Hunter, and K9 Ultron was okay. Light Ray was pretty decent. I guess Drown, but Drown was
Drown.
all right.
No, Drown was not a thing.
Yeah.
Even
Neptune
now,
only matters for Wild.
Drown had its one moment in the sun during Worlds when it was generated off of Svalna to try to put more cards in the deck for a Fatigue Mirror. That's the only time Drown has been relevant since it was printed.
Yeah. But that
Oh,
just
and
happened.
Commander Ulthok. Remember Commander Ulthok?
I don't. Shatter Shambler and Jackpot were in the set. Clownfish was in the set. Command of Neptulon. But the warrior cards, Igneous Lava Gorger and Tidal Revenant, were both really impactful and made Warrior completely crazy. By far, the best deck at the format. And so, after this mini set came out, there was another massive set of changes immediately after. This was the one where they nerfed 6 warrior cards. 6 cards in the same deck got nerfed. They nerfed, where is this? There was Shield Shatter, there was Tidal Revenant, there was Nelly, there was From the Depths, there was School Teacher, and Mr. Smite off of Nelly. So 6 total things. Completely demolished it, over-nerfed it. They undid most of these. School Teacher got semi-reverted back to a 4-4 later. They undid Shield Shatter. They undid Tidal Revenant. The only ones they haven't undone are Nelly and From the Depths, probably for the best. But yeah, it was a massive set of changes. Carry a Fell Soul. She went from 6 to 7. Yeah, I haven't thought about her in a little while. Nobody cares about her anymore. Battleworn Vanguard went to a 2-1. Lightforged Cariel. And they nerfed Spitelash Siren. Naga. Spell. Naga. Spell. I miss it. Probably wasn't okay, but I miss it.
Yeah. And I mean, we were just talking about this in the Discord today, actually, about, oh, is it time to unnerf From the Depths? And the reason you can't is because when you make it 3 mana, then School Teacher starts getting it. And then you get to From the Depths 4 times and 5 times with Bran in a game. And that's one of the things that was extra toxic about that deck. So I would imagine that's going to stay at 4 for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. And then the end of June, 23.6, the patch, the pre-order patch, gave us Renathal. So just to confirm, we got 2 double-digit card changes, a mini set, and a Renathal nerf, or Renathal introduction, all within 6 weeks. It was so much to keep up with. And Renathal in particular, it changed everything. We had to delay the VS report that week because all of our data was useless. And at first, Renathal looked like a total trap, but he was so popular, and there ended up being some really powerful decks that used him. In particular, first one was Beast Hunter, because people were trying it in control decks, people were trying it in Ramp Druid for the extra 10 health, but you only wanted the extra health for a setup turn in a deck with high threat density and the ability to find your good cards, and where you had mid-game power spikes. Beast Hunter fit the bill, and would be around for, well, it's still around to this day, despite a whole lot of the pieces being pulled out of the puzzle. So yeah,
was
he
that
was
before Prestor Druid?
Prestor Druid was with Renathal.
Yeah,
Renathal made
about the
Prestor
same
Druid a
time,
thing.
yeah.
This was at the end
Yeah.
of Voyage, where
Yeah.
it was a completely new meta, but also a lot of 40-card Thief Rogues, a lot of 40-card Ramp Druids. This was my least favorite time of the year. The Voyage, as far as expansions go, this year was, I loved the art, loved the sound, I think there were some cool things going on, but it was my least favorite expansion this year by a fairly large margin, because we went from Drekthar into gross grindy value battles, and there was no way to kill anybody.
I think in general, you're not a fan of 4 sets either.
Correct! I am not a 4-set person. It's like Voyage, Barons, Ashes was alright, but Ashes had its issues. I think some pretty notable problems. But yes,
Bloodsword Mercenary was fine. What are you talking about?
That was not an Ashes card. That was a Saviors of Uldum card. But
Yeah.
but yes, it's either way. Yes, you are correct. You have identified the pattern correctly. Grindy, low-powered value battles are not where I want to be, and that was all Voyage was. So, anyways, after they nerfed multi-strike, I was out. I was good until Nathria came out. But that was all in a 6-week period. We're halfway into the year. Renathal gets released. Halfway in. How much of this had you all repressed? Because I look back through old meta reports. There's just so much here that I just forgot about. Remember Burn Shaman? Burn Shaman is just like, it was cool.
Oh yeah, that was it. I remember trying to play that, and like I forced myself to learn it for THL because that deck was like I needed to learn it, and that was a
Sometimes-
difficult deck to play. Yeah.
Sometimes
Extremely.
you got extra bios off the Noggling, and then you would
Oh yeah, when you
Bowler
could
that
Bolner
Noggling and
Noggling.
just go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just build your own Malygos.
Well, there was the Bolner OTK deck too back then.
There was.
And
Well,
the-
that had rotated with Voyage.
yeah,
Lightning Bloom had
before
rotated
that
out.
was before
Yeah.
that. I mean, that was this year though. The Bolner.
I love
OTK.
that.
It was. Yep.
Yeah.
It was the first
Yeah.
first 3 months of this year. Though most of the time you didn't do that because you were losing to Kazakh-san.
Right.
Most of the time. But yes, sometimes you got dunked on. So, by the way, shortly before this, Nagas were also added to BGs. They were broken. Then they made them worse. They were still pretty good. Then they nerfed them even harder. They were still pretty good. Then they removed Stormscale Siren. Remember Stormscale Siren? That was the Naga that went from tier 3 to tier 5 that at the end of your turn would cast all of your spellcrafts on your own things. That got pulled out, and then Nagas became unplayable, and they had to revert a bunch of the nerfs, because it turns out the only thing that mattered was recasting all of your spellcrafts for free. Really, really powerful. But that was the mechanic when buddies left, was Nagas were added. And I think that they are a net positive on the game mode. But I miss getting Stormscale Siren and winning a lobby, and it was a really fun play pattern, but also was super busted. Yeah. All right. Halfway through the year.
How much do you miss other people getting Stormscale Skyrim and winning the lottery though? Because
None.
that would have happened in more
Not
games.
applicable. Yes.
Yeah.
And everyone would just fight over Naga, right? Like everyone would just fight over it. Anyways, Nathria came out August 2nd. Do you remember very early Nathria? The first day was like Imp Warlock broken.
I
But
remember getting killed for 80 from Denathrius on day 1 of Nathria on
I think it was
stream.
84. I remember that. That was a very clear memory.
Was that another one that people said was not going to be a realistic win condition, and then
I sure said that.
Yeah. That sounds like the kind of thing I would have said too. I'm pretty sure I said that nobody's going to play this except Druid, which was partially correct.
I mean, it certainly wasn't as effective for everyone as for Druid, but it ended up kind of warping with Renathal, where it was sort of like you just ran it at the top with a bunch of minions, and like sometimes it did a lot of damage.
It was pretty good in Shaman. It was very good in Shaman also.
Shaman, I think, was probably the one where it was best besides Druid.
Yeah.
And Habu Gabu Shaman was the second best deck at top 1K Legend. It was just the Renathal pile with everything in it. And you would have Nathria. It became the control Shaman blueprint here. Face Hunter was very powerful because collateral damage was bugged. And also because people were doing greedy things and you would kill them with Face Hunter. But yes, collateral damage was bugged. It was a big deal. I had to explain the bug on 2 sequential episodes. Face Hunter, Quest Hunter, Beast Hunter were all very strong. Naga Priest, quite good. Ramp Druid, pretty decent. Yeah, and Spooky Mage was okay. It was pretty okay. It was an interesting time, but there were nerfs, 2 weeks in, and these were, the great churn continued. This particular patch, I think, was the real turning point when it became clear that too much was changing too fast. So there are a few good nerfs here. Mainly, Snowfall Guardian got completely gutted. Big fan. Love that. Celestial Alignment got completely gutted. Big fan. Love that. They nudged one of the Wild Seeds via Library, lost its base +1/+1, and they tried to buff some stuff. Tried to buff some relics. Okay, they got better. Right. Tried to buff some aggro DH cards. Bibliomite, Magnifying Glaive. Okay, got a little better. They tried to buff... What is this? Other Demon Hunter cards. Abyssal Depths, Battle-Worn Vanguard back to 2/2. Irebound Brute. Brute me, dude! They buffed some Paladin cards. Warhorse Trainer. Give the minions taunt. Sure. Stand Against Darkness, move it to 4. Sure. Promotion. Give the minion taunt. Whatever. We don't play it. Countess Invites. Go to 2. That was pretty good. Let's see. Halkias. If you control a secret, store Halkias. Let's see.
Every
How do they
one of the
even
other
buff
secret
this?
cards
Oh, it had
in
stealth.
Rogue gets played now except Halkias.
Yes. Silverleaf Poison to 1. Sprint to 5. There's one more. What is this? Oh, yeah. Edwin to 3 mana 3/3. They buffed 7 warrior cards. 7. They just threw everything at this patch. It was right after a Masters Tour. Lambie Rogue had been discovered as a playable rogue deck. Then they buffed a bunch of rogue cards. Okay. But Edwin to 3 mana 3/3? Not okay. You can't do that. So, and this was, as Donkey is pointing out in the chat correctly, remember that this was accidentally pushed partially live on the server side, where the cards were just changed in players' hands during some games. So not every card.
Was
but
that
some
during a
people.
Masters Tour? During the Masters Tour that was happening, right?
It was during the MT.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep. So
Ooh.
people were, if you logged out and logged back in, you would go back to the normal server version. But if you stayed logged in, you could test these cards, and they functioned a little differently. And Edwin was leaked as 3 mana 3/3. So Aleko put out a big twit longer about it. Said they wanted to try some things that Rogue looked like it needed some foundational help. Well, it got it. The next 3.5 weeks or so I found pretty unpleasant. Luckily, in between 24.2, we got quests and Battlegrounds. The best thing the Battlegrounds team has done. Stand by it. Outside of releasing the game, I think the best mechanic they've ever added. And that's good, because that was what I was playing.
I don't know. I like that patch because, you could... Shadow Word Ruin was the best card in Hearthstone at the time.
Yeah, Quest Priest was good because the format was busted.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was August into September. Finally, in September, they regained some sense. Wildheart Guff, nerfed. Edwin, nerfed. Dawngrasp, nerfed. Nightcloak Sanctum from 3 durability to 2 durability. Why did that have 3? That had 3 durability. So stupid. So crazy. Kael'thas to 8. Nerf the Quest Hunter quest line. Smothering Starfish to 4. Revert School Teacher to a 4/4. Alliance Bannerman. Okay. This is when I was back in. And since this patch, I've been playing a lot of Standard ever since. The next patch, they nerf Theotar and a few Hunter cards. And after that, we get pretty current with the most recent round of patches, nerf Theotar and Ice Revenant, which of course everyone knew was coming. And then the most recent set of patches, we had a couple in December. And I look back at this year, people have talked about Control not being relevant. Control Warrior was nerf-worthy twice this year. People have talked about the board not mattering. I think Voyage and Nath are both extremely board-focused. And this whole year has been, like, a lot happened. The biggest thing that I think the team probably realized is that they pushed too many changes too hard. And then finally had to revert to high-confidence changes, of only making changes that make sense, that make the meta better without overwhelming people.
Yeah. I think, I don't know, on the one hand, I was excited for a bit of like, oh, they're really just trying stuff. This is interesting. And then we just kind of realized, oh wait, this is a little too much of what I thought I wanted. And it was so many changes, and I think it trained us to a state where, oh, don't like the game right now, they'll change it soon, and so we check out faster, and we're not as committed to, well, maybe I can find something that works, right? Because it's so much easier to say, well, they're gonna change it, I'll just sort of, do my dailies and focus on other games for a bit, and then they'll balance, right? Like, it's weird. I feel like I've been trained to have a little less fight in me for these situations, and I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't know if that's true, right? Because like we just had that, like the meta that we had before this one, like there was Quest Demon Hunter, there was Miracle Rogue, and then all of a sudden people started playing Plague Spreader because it was pretty good, right? And then that's kind of where the Control Priest came out. And there are metas that you can, where you have a number of dominant decks that are all playing along the same axis, and you can target them. And there are some that you can't. This one right now is so all over the place. It's really hard to do that. Mm-hmm. And it's also just got a feature of damage from hand, which most control decks struggle with. But I think that there have been some metas where things have come out, and they come out, a week or two later. And like the Habugabu Shaman, that took like a week or so before that really came together. Because I remember that was over a weekend, because I was messaging in the Discord like, is this pile of garbage actually a deck? Because that's what it looked like, was just like a pile of garbage, but it was a deck, right? So I think that there is some room for experimentation, but it's also like it's overwhelming, even just like as engaged players, to keep up with. Like I remember being very frustrated in a couple of THL seasons just because like I'd have a whole lineup wiped out, and I'm the kind of player that needs a bunch of reps on on the decks that I play in order to really feel comfortable with them. And I'd just have like an entire lineup wiped out between, the start of the week and when I had to play a match. And it's difficult with that. And I mean, I've talked about this, like my experience with Eternal, where I noped out of Eternal when I was playing it because they used to do this. Like, they had 30, 40 card balance changes every several weeks, and I had one deck. And then that one deck, like, they gave you a generous amount of whatever the crafting currency was, but that doesn't make up for the fact that like I have my one deck, and now I have to find another deck, and I don't know if I want to craft, use these limited crafting whatevers that I had to make these cards to be able to play this other deck that I don't know if it's any good or not, right? So that after that happens a couple times, then you just kind of say, well, I'm not going to bother anymore. And I feel like it's I mean, and this past set of balance changes was a little bit unique because they had to do like a mini one before Worlds. So that also did fairly significantly change the meta. But it does feel like it can be hard to get your feet underneath you. If when things are changing this drastically, especially like if you're spending a lot of time to try to learn whatever the best deck is, and especially if it's like a complicated deck like some of the ones that are popular right now, right? Like if you put a lot of time into Quest Demon Hunter, like is it even worth me learning this deck? Because this deck is not going to be a deck in 2 weeks probably, right?
We had some
So it's
people
like,
in the Discord that were like, should I learn Boon Priest?
Yeah, exactly. It's the same type of thing. It's like whenever something is the best deck, is it worth it my time to learn it? I mean, if it's something you enjoy, obviously, then it is. But if it's something that like isn't a style that you don't click with, and it's going to take you more effort than normal to be able to learn it, is it worth the effort? Because it's probably going to be gone if it's that good, right? And then it's like, well, what do I do?
Yeah. It's the hardest thing to answer right now for people is what should I craft? Because there's not really a great answer. Whatever you enjoy is the most important thing, but also if you're close to a mini set or a nerf patch, like maybe not. And right now in particular, we're at the beginning of the last set of the year. So if someone says, okay, I want to play this deck, should I craft Guff? Should I craft Wildheart Guff? Are you going to play Wild? Probably not. If you're not going to play Wild, probably not. Now, it's very easy to recommend new cards. Astalor, probably make that one. Probably make Astalor. Probably upgrade him to Golden. He's either going to get nerfed or you're going to play him for the next year and a half. Probably a safe one.
I'm a little scared if there's something that replaces Astalor.
Well, something
kind
will
of-
because they will nerf him if he stays this popular.
Sure.
I guess that is like a hallmark of this past year too, is the number of meta-defining neutral legendaries that have been printed, which feels a lot higher than normal. Like I remember that, like when they went from, I guess this must have been like Ungoro, when they went from having like most of the legendary, like having one class legendary and then like a whole bunch of neutral legendaries to having 2 class legendaries and like 5 neutral legendaries. And the neutral legendaries were generally very niche for the most part, like not like something like a Thaurissan, right? Or like a Lotheb that was in like every deck back in the old days.
Mm-hmm.
And now it feels like they're going back in the other direction. You look at some of the cards that we've talked about, right? Kazakhstan, Kael'thas, Brand to a lesser extent because that's in Corp, Drekthar, Renathal, Theotar, Denathrius, Astalor, right? Like these are all, like even Queen Ajara, we haven't talked about her a lot, but she's seen a lot of play in a number of decks, right? So they've been putting more power into the neutral legendaries, which can make the metas seem kind of samey when you're losing to the same cards over and over again. Like there were a lot of different decks with a lot of different play styles, but several of them played Denathrius. And when you keep losing to Denathrius, even though they're doing very different things, it feels like you're losing to the same thing over and over again.
When we've been cycling through sort of not sure quite the word I'm looking for, iconic or sort of hallmark cards of whatever set they were in, right, as win conditions. Like you were saying, less so for Queen Ajara, but certainly Kazakhstan, win condition, Denathrius, win condition, Astalor, less of a win condition universally, but certainly a win condition. I'm actually curious how Astalor plays out in 4-set meta if Shadow Step doesn't return, and like so everyone can only play one and it only has a single battle cry, because 16 is like good, but not that impressive when it's capped at 16, unlike Denathrius, which just scaled. So
Yeah, but it also lets everyone play at 35 health, right? So by
It's
giving you 5
three-
armor.
Yeah, it's 3 minions that all have relevant effects.
Yeah.
Really nice turn
Yeah.
7 play. It's Astalor, out of the neutral legendaries released this year, like it's not Drekthar. He's not on par with Drekthar. But out of the neutral legendaries released this year, the year of the Hydra, Astalor is the best performing one by far. It is better than Denathrius ever was.
I mean, it is that way because it is the most flexible we've ever seen. I mean, even if you don't get the first 2 benefits, being able to have a 2-drop and then a 5-drop, like that is something that's good both for control decks and for sort of more on the board decks, right? It is able to play in so many things because you're not sacrificing, right? The aggro decks are not like, well, I have to have this 10-drop in my hand. It's like, no, it does something at these earlier stages in the game. It's not so much of a sacrifice. And then you see Rogue in particular interested in running it because if they need extra value, they can step it and have a ton of value from like playing the 5s and then having multiples of the 8s.
Yeah. Like I'm old enough to remember when they sent Ragnaros and Sylvanas and Azure Drake to the Hall of Fame because those were just the best cards at those mana slots, and you would put those in first, and then maybe you consider something else if you needed another card at that mana slot. But that they were so good that they were pushing everything out of deck building, so you were effectively starting at like 27 cards if you were running one of Ragnaros or Sylvanas and 2 Azure Drakes, right? And it starts to like if your game plan involves you ever going to turn 10, then it's hard to not put Astalor in your deck, because why wouldn't you? Like it doesn't it barely costs you anything, right? So that's what I'm I don't know if it's a criticism or more of just like an observation that this is a thing that that's been happening in design that has been kind of affecting the way that the game's felt over the past year.
Curious to see if they continue. Also, wouldn't it be spicy if we got Rag and Core next year? Just to see what happens.
You probably wouldn't even see play.
I know.
Might.
Isn't that... I mean, it might enforce set, but I don't know if he would continue.
We
Yeah,
got him
enforce
back in
that
Doom in the
probably.
Tombs. We got him back in Doom in the
Remember
Tombs.
when we
You saw a little play
started
Hunter.
out with Dragon Queen Alexstrasza being like ending too many games?
Yeah, I mean, not even ending too many games, just being too silly. But
Yeah.
DoD was a
Yeah.
crazy time.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, I guess one other thing just to say, because like we didn't really talk about this either, but like there was a lot of criticism about like packages in some of the earlier sets, right? And how like the design was very package centric, and it doesn't feel, but the way it's kind of played out is that, yeah, there have been some packages that have been very strong, but there's also been, some of these cards that are just like a lot of the neutrals have been like whatever the opposite of a package is, just like standalone, standalone powerful.
March of the Lich King feels like the most open deck building set this year, and was also the first one with package reveals. So they revealed a bunch of these cards together as though you were going to do a Warlock undead Death Rattle deck, right? Just throw like discard and Death Rattle stuff all together. No, we aren't. We're gonna play these cards separately, but they all have a similar theme and are all purple, so they all get revealed together. Relic Quest Demon Hunter did not play Zymox. He didn't need to do that. Yeah, the other cards, he didn't need to do that. So there have been a lot of cards that have mixed and matched. Look at Aggro Mage, where it takes some of the Frost stuff matters, and then Arcane Worms and Arc Splitters, and it puts all that together into this interesting hybrid of it's got skeletons, but it doesn't even play the Sanctum a lot of the time. It doesn't play Kel'Thuzad. It
doesn't
arcane
play
stuff.
Vexillus, which doubles the arcane spells. It doesn't even need that, or the one that discounts the arcane spells, which we thought that was going to be the deck. And it doesn't even run them.
play. Yep, it doesn't play Flowcaster. Remember him? Remember Flowcaster? Gets cheaper for each frozen minion your opponent has. Doesn't play that. So it's interesting just seeing these different pieces being put together in interesting ways, but there is guided deck building if you want it, but it is very clearly not the best thing to do. And that is a big departure from where we were this time last year. I will say that Voyage was very package heavy, was very, very guided. And after Wildpaw and Null rotates, if the best thing we have to do is Pirate Rogue, there's going to be a problem. And Blizzard, you need to fix that, because I'm not going to play Pirate Rogue. But
Rogue can take a break for a minute. It had its 2 weeks that it was terrible, and then it was broken again. Like Rogue can take a minute. Rogue can just make Rogue okay again, right? Like let's just have Rogue be fine for like an expansion. That would be okay.
What's interesting is many of the Thief Rogue things are sticking around, right? You'll still be able to jackpot Naga Trickster. You're still gonna be able to Queen Azara for a Colossal. I guess Contraband Stash.
Contraband
is
Stash
going
is going away. I would be
Okay.
shocked if Test
Yeah,
stays in
all
core.
right.
So those are the things that are really going to keep that around.
also, Maestra, Wildpaw, Null, those seem significant.
Good, get out.
Yeah,
Get out.
I'm not saying they should say.
I'm looking forward to being able to mulligan against a class and know that it's actually the class that I'm mulliganing against.
I mean,
Yeah.
Also, I will say that the Concoction Sinstone Graveyard Rogue seems pretty solid, and I don't think much of that is going places. We'll
Wildpaw,
sort of-
Null is.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that you can
Okay, it
potion
doesn't
belt
have
and
to have
and
Wildpaw Null.
yeah, but it's another zero cost card. Because it's almost always zero cost card. Because if you play potion belt before you drop the disguise, it discounts the null by 2, right? And
think
then that's more cards that you can play.
I think something people forget with 4-set metas is that in general, like everyone's losing something. So even if it seems like someone's losing in particular, like other classes are still losing stuff. And usually they can shore up one class that is losing a bunch by, adjusting with core set and whatever the new expansion is. So people are always like, oh, this one class is going to be so screwed because it's losing all these things. And I'm just like, we have no idea what they're going to do to replace it. So I'm never really worried.
Or like
I
when they rotated out Eviscerate and then immediately printed Wicked Stab. Like
I want to make a
immediately.
correction too. I said Dragon Queen Alexstrasza earlier. I meant Alexstrasza the Lifebinder. And that was a
Oh.
thing that Rogue in particular was doing during 4-set meta.
Yes.
Oh, Baron's Rogue. Oh boy.
By the way, we're losing every tradable card, so get ready for that. Get ready to lose all
Yeah.
tradable.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
goodbye, Shard of the Naru. Rest
Oh
in
yeah, that's the one.
pieces.
That's the problem card. Okay, that's the problem card.
Anyways, we've got some time before rotation. Got a little bit of time. But before we get into a small strategy section, I do want to cover features, quality of life features that they added this year. All of these have been added this calendar year. The friends list defaulting to your highest rank or the current mode. The early concede quest warning. Play from mini hand on mobile. The recently completed achievements column. Upgrade to gold and shared deck codes and client. Multiple card backs. Frame rate selection. Overcap decks. Expanded recent players list. In-game reporting. Multiple hero skins. Hold spacebar to open packs. Improved returning player experience the first time. BG squelch all. Uncapped leaderboards. AI bots for low MMR. Mercs renown and task rework. Loner decks the second time. New event system. Battle bashes. Legendary hero skins. Tutorial skip. Reroll for duplicates. Signature cards. Duels bucket rework. Collection filtering checkboxes. This isn't everything, but this is all like the really major relevant stuff. All of that was this year. This was the year of the feature.
Yeah.
The year of the thing that you can do in the client that makes the client a little better. Still got some work to do. Still got some opportunity to grow. I believe Celestalon tweeted about it. Let's take a look. I remember he said something about this.
Oh yeah, because somebody put out like a graphic with like Ixar had put out a tweet like last year or something like that with like his goals for the year, and they put like colored arrows next to it or something for like what they were able to do and what they hadn't.
Let's see here. So mass pack opening is planned. Different sliders for different sound types will ship in 25.4 most likely. Player funnel investigation and improvements started. But yes, the I believe this was actually an Ixar chart that they were looking at. But yes, mass pack opening in particular was called out as something that is still planned. Pretty exciting.
very excited
Okay.
for that.
So, we have time for a little explanations based on a listener question from Rawrang about how do you plan pop-off turns. So, let's go do that.
So there's a few decks that we've had with pop-off terms, some of which have been nerfed recently, but in general, it's a good thing to sort of know or at least develop a sense for with these various decks when is about the turn that you want to pop off. I think they had really good notes at this Worlds about when you want to pop off in certain matchups as the Demon Hunter in terms of the location shenanigans that would take place. Blessed Priest versus Demon Hunter. It was like the Blessed Priest wanted to pop off as soon as the Demon Hunter used their location, because that meant that they would not have the opportunity to double the relic that deals damage, and so like that was your window of, all right, my board's not going to get cleared. So sometimes things can be very matchup specific in that sense of like, when is my opponent going to be weakest? When are they going to be on the back foot in terms of being able to deal with my stuff? But a lot of times it's really more in terms of just from a proactive standpoint, your own game plan, like when are you going to be able to develop the best? Things as examples, I said Blessed Priest, there was the Quest Demon Hunter, we've got Miracle Rogue, I think even to some extent right now, with the Nulls that has it's pop off turn. There have been some pretty insane ones like the combo priests in Uldum. I don't think anyone was necessarily doing this besides Dog, but there was the Topsy-Turvy Priest.
Oh yeah, APM
Yep.
Priest.
Yeah.
And there's also so the question we're asked, like, when do you go in? As that's generally a question that's framed around the idea that there is an accumulation of resources and then an expenditure of them in a pretty significant individual way. What's the word I'm looking for? Committal way. You're committing your resources. That is it. That is all that you get to do. Cat.
Trying to keep her from going on my lap, and it's just like,
It's like a puppet show.
Cat. So, the question is often asked in a way that is framed around committal. I'm going to spend my resources, then I won't have any more resources. This is not always the case, and also, sometimes your pop-off is just lethal. Sometimes it builds a big board that your opponent can deal with, and sometimes it's in between, and also sometimes it's not necessarily committal. The Concoction Thief Rogue right now, I really enjoy it because you can outlast Control Warriors. You can make... there was a game that I played with it, where it was against a Control Warrior. I made 4 ghosts over the course of the game. Their average stats was 10-10. I made 4 of them total. And they averaged out. I had 13-13 on turn 4, as you do. Then they cleared that, so I had an 8-8 and a 9-9. Then they cleared that, so I made a 7-7. They left, because I had an Astalor in hand. So, spent some resources, did some stuff, but had more in the tank. Whereas other times with Boon Priest, you kind of just go in, because the entire thing that your deck is built to do is to go in and do this thing as soon as I am able. Those are fundamentally different. So, when you're talking about combo decks like Boon Priest, where the reason your deck exists is to have one crazy pop-off turn and then kill them, that isn't a question of reading the game state so much as a question of understanding how to mechanically play your cards. What is the sequence I play my cards? Do I have enough? What am I looking for? What am I mulliganing for? In that deck, you're mulliganing for Switcheroo and Handmaiden. Draw a bunch of cards. When you have 10 cards in hand, if one of them is a Radiant Elemental, especially if you have access to Valish, and you have access to a boon, probably just start playing things until your minion is huge and then make a second one. That is mostly it. The execution is very difficult, but the planning is just understanding the mulligan and then having enough stuff. It gets way more complex, though a little bit more forgiving with something like Rogue, where you can go in and have a big pop-off turn, but if they clear it, you're not dead. You're not dependent on them not clearing it. And that's pretty different.
Yeah. It's also just kind of understanding at a minimum, like, what's the minimum amount of mana that you need to start doing whatever the thing is, right? Like, I remember playing the Nazmani Bloodweaver Miracle Priest, and like turn 6 was the turn, because you play Nazmani, you play, oh god, why am I forgetting the name of the card that copies it and makes a 1/1 copy with Divine Shield?
Oh, Gift of Luminance.
Yeah, Gift of Luminance. How could I forget a priest card? Good grief. But
Oh,
you know,
'cause
and
you
then
loved
and
this
then
deck?
you'd have.
Is that why?
I did actually enjoy that deck, believe it or not. But where you'd make copies, and then you just start playing spells and start making them bigger, and hopefully make more copies and whatever, and then you just kind of hope. But like you had to you if you tried to go in before that, you just run out of mana and you just flail. So like knowing like what the minimum amount of mana is to do all of the things that you want to do is important, at least to knowing like, is it possible for me to go off at this point? Or should I consider it? Like, do you have the minimum requirements to do that?
And I think in general, when things are reasonable, it's hard to go off on anything before like turn 4 or 5 these days. I think when they got rid of original Edwin, like that was the main thing, where you would do something silly as early as like turn 1 or 2. And of course you can still do that kind of thing in Wild. But typically, I think these days in Standard, you will struggle to find something that goes off earlier than turn 4.
I think your average deck is like Rogue can start doing some things on turn 4 if you have a really, really good draw and you're on the coin, probably. But even then, this isn't a format where games end on turn 4 most of the time. Like, you're doing stuff after that for a while. Like, it's, I did just talk about making a 13/13 on turn 4, I understand, but the game went on for 6 more turns after that.
Yeah. And I think many times things have a setup on 3 now, right? Where you're, maybe playing either switcheroo, right? Or, Rogue has the 3 mana draw 2 minions, although I don't know if they use that right now. But
no. The setup for Rogue now is just like play Graveyard and pass. The setup is drawing Potion Belt on 2. That is the setup turn.
Right. Yeah. Because that gives you your more discounts on your null, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think knowing your best setups is going to allow you to potentially go off earlier, right? Because you have sort of the optimal mulligan and things that you're looking for, and there may occasionally be things that allow you to pop off earlier or later. But these days, typically like 4 is pretty early. And I think Rogue is usually the one that is likely to have earlier, but not necessarily straight up win the game things. And when they are straight up win the game, usually it gets touched.
Yeah, well, I think the current Rogue list will get touched. But yeah, it's a lot of this comes down to you have to understand what your deck needs to do to win, because that also means it teaches you the very important skill of which resources do I not need at the end of the game so I can use them now. Because you have to understand, if you're playing DH, when can I use an Unleash Fel? When can I use a Fel Barrage? When can I do that before I'm going to win? Do I need to Sinful Brand or Warband on 4 or 5 early to get the chip damage in? Do I need to Bound Soul early to get the Sathino in my hand? You have to understand what your deck is doing so you know what you need to save and what you don't. And a lot of that comes with experience, because being able to use resources to not be dead is very important, because you can't pop off if you're dead. Phylactery Warlock. Do I play the Rod, or do I do a Sheep Grimoire turn now and save the Rod for later? That sort of thing.
And I think Phylactery Warlock is a good example of a deck where your ability to win games will go up pretty significantly if you memorize damage number. Like, just what cards give you what amount of damage, because something that deck is currently able to do that it didn't used to be able is it can do a considerable amount of damage with 2 key minions, right? If you just have Tamsin and the new 1/3 that gains death rattles, and you've already had a mine die, with just those 2 minions, you can phylactery to give Tamsin, give them the death rattles twice the way that you would normally, and then you like drain soul to kill Tamsin. Its death rattle goes on the devourer, and then you use the new trigger a death rattle and then kill the minion on that 1/3, and that's 40 damage. Just those 2 minions. But I think people get in a mindset from previous iterations of you need to have a full board of imps, or like have generated a bunch of imps and give them the phylactery death rattles. Yeah, you can get some really enormous numbers that way. But having this one new card, well, I guess 2 new cards of this 1/3 and a spell that triggers a death rattle and then kills the minion, adjusts what things you can do to be able to win. And so memorizing, certain things for your deck is really going to help you be able to do things in time in the turn, when otherwise it might be challenging if you're not used to it. And these are things that you can memorize totally outside of the gameplay, right? You just have to look at it and do the math, maybe even have a cheat sheet next to your computer or device or whatever. Say, okay, these are, in the case of Phylactery Warlock, this is the amount of damage I can do with these different things, the sequences of cards. In terms of Bless Priest, I don't know, here's the things where I can get the stats this big. There've been over time, I guess in Demon Hunter you could figure out, all right, with Double Sinful Brand and Falderai, like what's my damage? How much more do I need from other sources? And just having that kind of stuff memorized will let you just sort of start going, rather than, okay, let me think about this. Do I have enough? Right? Because sometimes then you don't have the time to actually do the turn.
Yeah, like aggro mage, like everything's 5s. All your damage is
Yeah,
in
yeah.
chunk of 5. So just, but take
With
whatever spells
Aegon.
you have. Yeah. I mean, even just like, I mean, this goes back to like old bloodlust math of like, like taking shortcuts to be able to count lethal. But yeah, like I remember Language Hacker making like, graphics of Il'gynoth math back in the OTK Demon Hunter
Yeah,
days.
great example.
Like there's no, like anything you could do to save yourself time, and even just be like, you should be spending your opponent's turn counting things. Probably. I mean, obviously pay attention to what they're doing, but also if you're playing a deck like this, you should be spending the time when they're thinking about how they're going to wreck you, right? You should be taking that time to figure out what you have. What do I need? So that, because like generally with these decks that have a lot of actions, like you need to start going as soon as your turn starts. So that means that you need to make sure that you're taking advantage of all the time that you're given before that, to understand what the game state is and understand what your hand is and know what happens. And also, like, what do you need to happen? A lot of times with decks like Boon Priest, or like the really old, Miracle Rogues, like you're playing with the cards that are in your deck as much as you're playing with the cards in your hand. You need to know what's in your deck and what you can expect to draw. Because if your deck involves drawing a ton of cards, right, then you're likely to pick up something that you don't have in your hand right now. So you need to have plans for that. Okay, what am I going to do if I pick that up? What do I do if I don't pick that up? Then what else do I do? Or, and sometimes it's just like, you just kind of get to a point where if I don't do this now, even if the situation is not perfect, I'm never going to get a chance to do it. So I'm just going to have to start and try to make it up as I go along, which might be because I'm about to die, or just from what's on board, or like we're getting to a critical turn where I know that there's a card that will undo my entire game plan, right? Like I'm playing against a priest. I know for whatever reason they have Whirlpool on 8, and I'm playing a Boon Priest, right? Like then okay, I need to get in before they can do that, because I know once they have that, then nothing matters. So I'm just gonna have to go and just do whatever I can before they get like against a Blood Death Knight, like Soul Stealer is gonna wreck anything that's relying on a board, right? So like if it's turn 6 going into their turn 7, you probably just need to go with whatever you have, because it's very likely they're going to have a Soul Stealer on 8. And if you wait until their turn 8, then, for it to be perfect, then they're just going to wipe you out and you're going to be done.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, that there's sort of like, well, against control, you want to try and go off sort of as early as you can while still maximizing your stuff, because you want them to have had as little opportunity as possible to find their answers. And against aggro, typically you want to buy as much time as you can, and then you go off like the turn before they're gonna kill you. Not always, but often that's how it goes. It's like, all right, well, I'm dead if this doesn't work, so we go off now. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, but those are frequently sort of the marking points.
This stuff is complicated and hard to explain. It's hard to vocalize this stuff because, like, think about pop-off turns versus combo game-ending turns. Like, I think of those differently, but they're probably similar skills. They both involve a lot of counting, a lot of sequencing.
Sort of.
Something that I have found to be really helpful in coachings, something that I do that I haven't found to be a skill set that everyone has picked up. And this is some actionable advice, listeners, that I can pass along to you directly. You should be able to look at a hand and chart out a full sequence of how you're going to spend your mana on the current turn that you have and the next turn or turn after. You should be able to talk about a 3, 4, 5 turn sequence. You should be able to talk about, here's what I'm going to do this turn, these are the cards I play in order. Look at a hand, sequence this turn and the next turn. Or if this turn is a Sinstone Graveyard turn, you're going to play 8 or 9 cards. Just do this turn. Just this one is fine. But you have to be able to figure out what is the sequence, what is the order I'm going to play these cards in. You should do that whenever you look at any deck list. Whenever you look at a deck list, all right, what's my nutty sequence? What is the curve I'm trying to hit? Look at Relic DH, right? Pretty obvious. Vault into Phantasms, into like whatever on 4 dimensions on 5, then they nerfed it. You get the idea. You want to be able to look at a deck list and say, this is the power curve that I'm looking for. This is the sequence that I want to do. Because it informs what your play will be on particular turns. It informs what your game plan will be, what you're working with, what you're playing before, what you're playing after. And it helps you execute the turns faster. So if I'm giving a piece of actionable advice here, figure out your sequences, both from hands you see in games, past and present, and also when you're looking at a deck list, what a powerful sequence is going to look like. There's a lot of good advice being given here. Count a lot. Yeah, knowing the numbers, very important. You should be able to know the numbers. Some of that is lethal math, some of that is mana math, whatever. Know how your deck functions. Very important. Kind of the advice that I'm giving you here. Know which pieces you can pull out of the puzzle and still keep your tower standing. Very important. And knowing how to win with your plan B. If your main thing doesn't work, if I have to use up my Faldora Warbands before I can play any Sinful Brands, how do I win the game? Is it going to be Unleash Fells and Jaces? Is that what we're going to do? In that case, do I have to not play any spell damage to make sure that my Unleash Fells hit for 1 each? And that way the thing that I target with Brand stays alive? That sort of stuff. And that comes with time and experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the one thing I would add is, and this is something I've talked about, like a number of coaching sessions that I did with Peltire. He did for me like a number of years ago. And one of the best things that I picked up from that is just kind of break the game up into like mini goals, right? So like your pop-off turn is your goal. So if you're looking at your pop-off turn, then you know kind of like roughly like what turn you're going to go based on how much mana you're going to need based on what your hand looks like. What kinds of things do I need to do between then and now to make that happen? Right. So if I'm not going to have mana to be able to play a Sinstone Graveyard, I need to preload that on one of the turns where I'm loading up. Like that even applies for not combo decks. I'm playing big Spell Mage, right? Like I ideally want to go coin Belinda or coin Barbaric Sorceress on 6. So that means that I need to play a Mailbox Dancer sometime on turn 2 or 3, and then I may need to, get a spell into my hand. If I have a spell and I have a Drakefire Amulet, in addition to the spell that I want to discount, I may want to take 1 mana to trade my Drakefire Amulet into the deck so it doesn't so the Barbaric Sorceress doesn't hit that, so I'm able to rune the Archmage. Like those types of things. But like, look at like, what are the things I have this much mana to work with between then and now? What are the things that I have to do in order to make this successful? Just that alone, and kind of thinking of things in like, like Hat said, like 3-turn clumps in game. Not just thinking about the current turn, but thinking about like, what is the next big thing that I want to do, and what can I do on these turns to help myself get there? That'll help for any deck, but certainly for combo decks in particular.
Then sort of the next level is if you can consider what you're playing against and knowing what they're trying to do, and you may have to adjust based on doing your thing first, or if it's a swing turn, doing your thing right after. Because sometimes the case is like, you want them to do their pop-off so that yours deals with theirs. I think there was a fantastic Mr. Yagurt clip of...
with the rogue versus the priest. That was awesome.
The priest
that was so
does
good.
their bless pop-off turn and double... I forget what it's called, but the statues, right? They or Boon of the Ascended.
Yeah.
Right, they have these massive minions, and he's just like, okay, we're going to kill all of these. And as a Concoction Rogue, he just is able to get enough of like the deadly shot things and deal 3 damage to kill smaller stuff to actually clear the board and make like a 13 or some enormous Sinstone Graveyard minion. And yeah, it's just like sometimes if you know your pop off has an element that like deals with opponents' things, you can account for that. I think one of the ways people played around like Quest Mage, right, was by not having minions for them to be able to complete quest things. So
I hated how good that was to just not play anything, so they couldn't play any frost spells. Because all they had, if you left up Ice Barrier, they had nothing. They couldn't frost.
Mirror was the worst. Oh my god, where you'd be hoping to get like a Wand Thief just so you could throw a frost spell at it to move your quest forward, because nobody would play minions or no one would leave them on the board.
Yeah. There are a lot of matchup nuances, and that's going to come with time as well. So to wind down this section, like a lot of this is going to be absorbing this type of knowledge through experience and thinking about it academically, understanding your deck's goal, understanding your sequences, and learning matchups it's something important to learn with time. But I think if we're talking about teaching the fundamentals, it's going to be more about understanding just what is your deck supposed to look like when it works and how do you get it there. That's our last explanations of the year. So I think we have some folks we'd like to thank. We have many folks, in fact, we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website, coinconcede.com. You can find our content info, show notes, patron information. You can monetarily support our show, patreon.com/coinconcede. Join us every week live. Following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. Run into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at CoinConcede. Like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/coinconcede. Like some CC swag, heading over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. Big thanks to our producers, Number Theory, Doshi K, Crush, Cat, B Squatch, David P, Faded Black, Waldu, Jeremy T, Bottle Caps, Lucky, Grumpy Monk, and Krebmart. CoinConcede as well to, who was I supposed to hang out with on Monday? Beef Squatch and Tito, thank you for being so flexible with scheduling when I had a horrible 13-hour day on Monday at work. It was terrible. Mid-game sent me biscuits from Australia. But when they got here in America, they became cookies, because that's what they're called here. They're cookies. Listeners, if you ever go to a store and you see something called a Tim Tam, do not hesitate. Purchase the Tim Tams. They are so good, and these had caramel in them, and they vanished very quickly.
Oof.
Wow.
Yes. Copa made the best tweet of the discourse this week. It's his tweet. Now we'll read it. Meta this, meta that. How about you met a real person outside? Copa, you were fantastic. Thank you for summarizing the discourse so effectively. And Brookworm, she finally put it the tweet longer saying, hey, I'm not a streamer anymore. Like, she hasn't streamed in a while. She got a full-time job and lived her life. But Brooke, it was great being part of your streams, and good luck in the future with whatever it is you end up doing. Yeah. Coin concedes. Steve, you have a couple.
Yeah, so Edel, I'm going to coin concede to you for, suggesting the co-op yesterday, because it was a lot of fun to Reno people and confuse them probably as much as other people have confused me over the past couple days. And I'm also going to coin concede to Divided Sky, who was a player I ran into yesterday on ladder, and I was kind of half paying attention to ladder to the game because that's kind of where I was. And then all of a sudden, this person insta conceded and then immediately sent a friend request. And that was the first coin concede that I'd gotten on ladder.
Oh.
So thank you for brightening my night up. And I guess coin concede to both of you for inviting me to join the show this year, because that was the other one thing that we didn't talk about in the year review, is that...
I mean, there are a lot of things, but yes, that was a pretty important one.
Yeah, I was February is when I came on, and yeah, it was, because it was January that Hat messaged me in the middle of me having the equivalent of a 13-hour Monday at work to ask me, and then I said I don't want to say anything right now. Can I give you an answer in a little bit after I calm down? And it's been amazing, and I'm really happy to be part of the show every week. And it's been almost a year. It's crazy.
Wow.
So yeah.
Well, glad to have you, buddy.
Yeah.
Edel, final coin concedes for the year.
Yeah, so mine are going to go to Pilot, Fade to Black, Wash in the Wind, and Hustle. I sent out my coaching messages very late this month, and they were pretty cool about either, squeezing something in pretty quick or doubling up next month as needed. So I appreciate the understanding, as this has been quite the month for me. For those curious from last week, everything's okay with there was no miscarriage, which was the concern. So there is much relief in my house, and we're on track. And once we're out of first trimester, we can start thinking about names. So we'll see.
Sounds fun.
That'll be fun. Yeah. And then I can start getting Maureen start shopping for baby stuff for you.
My sister got, and this is way too early, but my sister got a Baby Yoda onesie that I think Rachel is going to find.
Oh, this is the generation of Baby Yoda babies, isn't it?
Oh my god, yeah.
Oh
it
my
really
gosh.
Is. 100%.
Yeah. Well, while I grapple with that internally, with that realization, we're gonna sign off the show. We'll see you back next year, and next week, the normal time. We'll see you back here, January. Till then, keep calm and have a lovely new year. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
Stopping recording. I actually have to go play a THL match against Hustle now.
Oh.
But I messaged him beforehand. He's pretty cool. Thanks everyone for being here. Really appreciate all you hanging out with us. 376, yes.
Yeah, I'm.
Oh, hello, Hustle.
Either.
Yes, I have to play him. That guy.
Either.
He figured out where I was.
Need a replacement next week, or I need to do Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we want to send a raid over,
playing
Dragon
Mexico.
Rider's still streaming, by the way.
Sure. I also cannot do Wednesday because I have a different podcast that day called The Angry Chicken. So
Gotcha.
we'll find someone because you have a wedding to go to.
True.
Yeah, it'll be all right.
Yeah, Rachel's officiating, so that'll be.
That seems important
Well,
to be there.
Not
Yeah.
the Catholic one, but she's doing those.
No, your wife
I mean,
is
I'm
not.
sure she could if she wanted
she's
to. But,
not the most Catholic person I've met.
No.
She's actually pretty low on the she's
Yeah.
The
There's-
Jewish lesbian rabbi, not very Catholic.
Yeah, there's the there's the Catholic wedding for like the mother of the bride, and then there will be the secular ceremony on the beach for my brother.
That sounds involved. Anyways,
Yeah.
who am I rating? Because I gotta jump off here.
Dragon Rider.
Okay. What's your Dragon Rider?
Dragon Rider TCCG.
Right. It's not DK?
No, because she changed it when she
I still-
branched out.
I still have the old one saved. TCC. There it is. Yeah. Okay. All right. Everyone go say hi to Dawn.
Bye, friends. Just
Bye.
Well, you've got 8 seconds, so you know. You just did the wave goodbye, then walk down the same block. That's what you just did. All right. Later, everybody.
Bye.